Okay, well, here we are with Natasha Donn's news review. I happen to be in Italy, in Bologna, Natasha. I take it. I see a familiar surroundings. You're in the Algarve in
I'm
Portugal.
still in the Algarve. In fact, you know what? It's really difficult to get out of this setting because I'm always working. But when I do, which I have to do today because I have to go down to Lagos to collect a computer and blah, 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 it's such a release.
Really, to get out and about. You need to get out more by the sound of it.
I need to get out more. I mean, apart from working and walking my dogs, I'm hardly out.
Wow. Okay. Well, we will see the fruit of your recent labour. It's been certainly interesting for people to find out what the impact on Portugal is with this terrible war. Has it stopped? Is it continuing? We don't really know. Maybe we can make some sense of that. And I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you keep your nose to that war grindstone and make any sense of what's coming out of Washington, but we'll do our best. Before we go there, let's go domestic and national with a rather grisly story here, I have to say, Natasha. Partner and ex-partner of Frenchman arrested in Portugal found dead. What's going on here? This must have been horrible to report.
It's such a sad story because the thing is that who's going to be affected by this, obviously, apart from the poor dead women, is the two children. So what happens is this crazy guy who's gone bananas, he's so upset because the courts have taken away his custody of his children from two different women because he behaves in such an obsessive and unattractive way. He decides that what he's going to do is kidnap everyone, drive to Portugal, and I presume he hadn't got really, a bit like President Trump, he didn't really have an end game. He had the women in the back of the car sedated, and he said to them, apparently, according to the eldest child, the youngest child is too young to talk. She's only 1.5, but the eldest child is 13. And he said the two women were told that if they made any fuss or tried to get away, that the children would be harmed. So, I mean, the man was completely bananas. But anyway, what happened was at some point, crossing the border from Spain to Portugal, he obviously had enough of the women, even though they were sedated, and he killed them both. So then he decided he was going to bury them, which he did, making his son watch over what was happening because he was convinced that there were helicopters after him, because he'd seen a helicopter in the sky, which was just a normal helicopter just checking for forest fires maybe or whatever. So this poor little boy had to sort of witness the burials of these two women, one of which was his mother. And then the children were back in the car and the man was driving. We don't know where, we don't know what his end plan was. But what happened, and this is what's so fantastic, you know, when we're always cursing, when we see a blinking police patrol ahead of us and we think, oh my God, and they go, come along, and they put you to the side and they say, can I see your documents? There is a really good reason for these patrols, because this guy might have gone on, he might have even killed his own children, we don't know, but luckily they saw his documents that were falsified. They kind of got a bad feeling about the guy, must have done. They then searched the car. They discovered over 10, I think, false license plates. They found 17,000 in cash. They could see the children were not looking obviously happy or comfortable. Anyway, to cut a long story short, they arrested him in that. At that point, it was just for a possession of a weapon because he had a rifle in the car.
Yes.
And then when they got to the police station, they realized, they looked him up and blah, 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 and they talked to the little boy. And this awful story came out. I mean, it's just so awful.
Awful, yes. But thank goodness for that, for the police road check and stop.
Yeah, so in a way, sometimes, you know, I sometimes curse these road checks because I get stopped all the time. And of course, I've got also one car that I often have my dogs in, which has no seatbelts at the back because it never did, because it's from 1987. And so there's always a complaint about the dogs aren't properly secured, because I just put the dog's leads round my seatbelt so that if there was an accident, we'd all, I suppose, sort of just end up in a terrible melange. But the policeman keeps saying this is not ideal, and I said yes, but how am I meant to attach them to a car with no seatbelts? Because you see, in Portugal also, you're not allowed to put seatbelts in a car that has no seatbelts, because then you're going against something called, it's a wonderful word, homologated or something.
Homologation.
Yeah, I don't understand that word.
Yes,
Who came up with a word like that? But anyway, because of my lack of homologation, I do curse these road stops, but no one's really ever got too cross with me. They usually let me go in exasperation.
Okay. Yes. All right. Well,
and because the dogs are usually starting to snap at their heels.
Right. Okay. Well, there's some good value there on the back of a rather grim story, and thankfully this man is in custody, and we can only hope that his children recover in the best possible way. I think he's going to
be extradited. The children are going to be obviously given to the first available relative. They don't appear to have come sort of, stampeding over the hills yet, because the children are still in the care of Portuguese, child protection services.
Bless
but
them.
I mean, these poor children are going to be traumatized. This is not something you get over.
Not something easy to get over, is it? Wow. Okay. Well, thank goodness he is now in custody. And we move on now to, actually the nurse story, that article that you reported on before, or the two nurses. She is in prison as well now. I'm not sure if we had that update from you.
I think we might. I don't remember,
so
to be honest.
She's behind bars as well. We're seeing some good police work.
But the great thing is, she's in prison. She's in prison. She was extradited, and basically she should be now spending quite a long time in jail. She was condemned to 23 years, but I think you obviously always get out for good behavior, and you get weekends out, and oh my God!
More news and messages coming in.
No,
Natasha
it's
Donn
something
and
silly.
the news review.
Anyway, so she's in jail, so that's good.
Right. Well, we move on to this war situation of the United States and Israel on Iran, and there is some strangely good news, is there not? We can take a first look at how Portugal is away from the worst of the, I guess, the theatre of war, we might call it. And you were quick to be on this and share it with people. So missiles can hit all European countries except Portugal.
I think
good news in a way.
Parts of Ireland and parts of Scotland. The thing is, I don't believe this for 1 minute. I think this was another of these Israeli tactics to try and get everybody involved in the war. Because if you see this map, it's produced by the IDF.
Oh, okay.
And do you know what? I think there's been so many lies surrounding this war up till now that you can't actually believe a thing. You just can't.
Well,
I mean, you can believe
that
the Straits of Hormuz are shut, and you can believe that enormous parts of the Middle East are under rubble. You can believe all that, but you can't believe any of the things they're saying. Well,
I'm not sure who said it, Natasha, but the first casualty of war is the truth. And it would appear to be the case. And you also had some doubts about the missile that was launched towards, what was it? Where was that?
I did have doubts about that
Diego
missile.
Garcia, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't even believe that was was it last week that we talked about this? I didn't necessarily believe that missile came from Iran. We just don't know.
True.
But the thing is that they said the missiles can hit all of Europe. And in that story, I did mention that Netanyahu had said, this means that this is a battle for the security of the entire world. In other words, wanting everybody to come on board and help with the war effort. The war effort, we don't know where it's going, because at the moment, the war effort is focused on opening the Strait of Hormuz that was open before the war. So that doesn't make any sense at all. There's no regime change going on. I heard Trump the other day in the I suppose it's the Oval Office, saying to somebody off camera, he said, I guess, Steve or something, we've had a regime change because we've killed nearly everyone. I mean, what an idiotic statement.
It's hard to take anything that's being said there seriously. And I was asking actually a currency expert. Could you give your camera a poke as well while You seem to have disappeared from the screen there.
Oh,
Natasha.
okay. Sorry.
No, not at all. Of all people, I was asking a currency expert what cues the markets take, and he had this same difficulty about deciphering the the verbal onslaught coming from White House and what sense to make of it, because the markets are hanging on Trump's every word and his nearest and dearest when it comes to causing all this trouble. But it's so hard to make sense of what's being said and where we're headed with this.
Absolutely. I have a son who is a trader, funded trader or something, and he's been having a terrible time because he says that because he's very cautious. He says that you can't really do anything because one minute President Trump says something which is clearly a lie and the stupid markets react positively. And he said they go straight up, but he says this, perfectly well they're going to come straight down.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful.
Absolutely. And I think the major signal they're looking for is the end of the conflict, but how that's measured, because we have been told it's over, but help is still required, and on it goes. Anyway.
Well, but this thing about saying the end of the conflict, one of the links I gave you was about the largest and most lethal US drones passing through Lage. And that's a bit of a story in itself. But the fact is, those drones are due to be in Jordan, to fly to Jordan. The last story I saw, which is I haven't put on our website because I thought, to be honest, everybody is lying. So let's just try and concentrate on stories that affect Portugal. But according to the latest story, I think it was in Expresso, they were saying that the drones that are not even yet supposedly at Lage, although they were expected hours ago on Monday, they are due to go to Jordan, and then they will go on to the field of battle. So in other words, on the 6th of April. So in other words, all this talk about, we want it all to be over very soon, they're actually planning certain things very, very minutely, and they've got dates for them.
Definitely mixed messages, and troops on the ground, it would appear as well. Well, they are heading that way. So how that adds up as being the end of the conflict is again hard to decipher. I'll just read, if I may, the last part of this a report about missiles can hit most of Europe except Portugal, and as you say quite rightly, Ireland as well, and parts of Scotland. The final paragraph, all this has seen Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warn that Iran now has the capacity to reach deep into Europe, meaning that the threat posed by Iran goes beyond the region of the Middle East, making the war a battle for the security of the entire world. Now, I think you very wisely see that that's just a way of drawing people in, how the European...
I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu must be one of the most vile and evil men on the planet. Everybody loves to keep going on about Vladimir Putin, but Benjamin Netanyahu is right up there as well.
Yes, indeed. And
so I wouldn't believe a word that he said.
No, and you mentioned here as well the largest and most lethal US drones expected to land at largest air base, which is the Azores, of course, the Azores within hours. This was reported a few days ago, but it shows, doesn't it, how there is some sort of posturing and some hesitancy, but I think European governments want to balance not looking helpless and defenseless, but not unnecessarily getting themselves into ridiculous battles that they never wanted to be in the first place.
I don't think they've managed it somehow, do you? I mean, we had a lovely story where Portugal joined a group of 30 countries who were all ready to help open the Strait of Hormuz. But all they were actually saying was, we condemn this, we condemn that, and we want international law to take precedence. I mean, that's not, showing a great deal of readiness. That's just showing that you condemn things.
Yes.
They're not ready to help. They're not going there with a boat or anything, or a missile or nothing.
Yes.
So it's a complete. I mean, not wanting to say the wrong words on air, but it's a complete mess.
Meantime, Portugal's stance in this war, you say in the article you referred to about the Portugal government joining a group of 30 really to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. I guess they felt like they needed to do something. the final paragraph here, meanwhile, Portugal's stance in this war is open to a degree of question. It is repeatedly said that it will not get involved, and you have an article, it will not send troops for any reason whatsoever, but it continues to allow the United States to use the Azorian air base of Lajes, we'll go there now, as a stop-off point for some of the most lethal weaponry available. In a way, Portugal having it both ways then.
But it always has. If you think about history, where Portugal was like that in the Second World War as well.
Yes, good point.
You know, that's the way Portugal is. It's a sort of run with the hares and hunt with the hounds, and always be straggling at the back with your trousers around your ankles. They're not. Okay. Yeah, but they're not. They're not known for being at the forefront of anything.
Yes. Well,
and that's their saving grace.
Well, I think so. It can work well for us. It does work well for us, I think, on occasion, and has done throughout history.
Exactly.
Largest and most lethal US drones are expected to land at Lajes Air Base within hours. But the US president appears to have called off military attacks on Iranian power plants. That also was March the 23rd. A lot has changed since then, Natasha. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. And meanwhile, these, as you say, are headed to, was it Jordan, you said?
Well, no, what it is, I haven't put that in that article, because that article, the drones were due to arrive within hours. Then there was a bit of a sort of kind of scuffling behind the scenes, because once these articles started coming out, there was a great deal of pressure on Portugal. What do you mean? You said you weren't going to have any aircraft coming in that was going to be involved in active combat and stuff like that. Do you remember?
Yes.
At the beginning of the war. So then what they said is, no, we're sending a list of questions, and the drones won't arrive until the questions have all been answered. And the latest thing is, I read, which I don't believe at all, and this is the thing, you cannot believe half of what you read, and yet you are meant to be writing. It's very complicated. But anyway, the latest thing I read, again, I think it might have been in Expresso, was that the drones would be arriving in Lajes in containers in order to be assembled at Lajes. And I thought, this doesn't make sense at all. These things have got a 20-meter wingspan. What kind of container are you going to put them in?
Yes. Okay. Very interesting.
So that doesn't make any sense at all. But obviously what's not very helpful for the Americans in Lajes is that there are some very active plane spotters around the perimeter all the time. So they know what's coming in and what's going out. Right.
My goodness. Right. And that's how we're getting close to some sort of truth then. Regular civvies who are watching and you're seeing what's moving in and out.
Yeah. I mean,
upon which you can only surmise.
Some sort of truth.
Well, movement of aircraft is one thing. Movement of governmental VIPs, the vice president, no less. Has he flown? Well, what's this about? J.D. Vance flying to Portugal.
It was a lie. I'll tell you why it was a lie. Because he was apparently in Porto on, his plane was. Put it this way, the plane was.
Yes.
And it was due to then fly the next day to Macedonia, which has, as far as we know, is not involved in anything to do with peace talks. So he may have been going from Macedonia on to the idea being Pakistan. But what was so bizarre was that the next day on Sky, there was a meeting in Washington with President Trump and all members of government and other people. And there was Vance sitting at the table. And it was a live thing. So there was no way he was in Macedonia.
Okay, so there's only so much we can learn from watching aircraft moving.
Yeah,
because the people who are said to be on them might not even be on the plane, as was the case with this.
Exactly. So in other words, what it may have been is this is called Air Force 2. It may have been the plane used by J.D. Vance, but it might have had someone else in it.
Yes. Okay, very good. A good sleuthing there, Natasha. And whilst
I was surprised because I was looking at the thing and I thought I saw this great big sort of toffee apple face at the table. I thought, Christ, that looks like J.D. Vance, but he's meant to be in Macedonia. So then I froze my, the thing you can do, freeze your screen. And I looked, I thought, It is J.D. Vance. So he's not in Macedonia. He's not in Pakistan. He's not doing any of this nonsense that they talked about. And in fact, if you look in the last couple of reports, maybe the last 24 hours of reports, he's not appearing as a peace negotiator anymore.
Well, it's
So
very
it's
interesting.
all,
He's been so quiet, hasn't he? What do you make of his quietness? I mean, Hegseth has been very vocal and vitriolic. Rubio, other members of Trump's nearest and dearest colleagues who are going ahead and wanting to have this war. JD Vance, on the other hand, seems to have been relatively quiet. What have you made of that?
Well, I think he's absolutely the worst kind of man. Probably the most disastrous, one of the most disastrous members of the Trump administration, but there's so many of them. But he's definitely a disastrous member. So what do I take of it? He's just trying to save his skin.
Yeah, I think that's a very plausible theory.
He doesn't agree with the war, but he doesn't want to say it in case he upsets some of the people that might vote for him in future.
And ruins his prospects. Well, okay.
And ruins his prospects of being the next president after President, indeed, if President Trump does shuffle off. I mean, it's such a, there are many words, but we'll just use the word mess. It's such a mess.
Yes, it wasn't. Let's get some feedback from our audience this morning. We record this live so that people can have a say and contribute, and it will be republished later on today at 3:00 when the news review comes out. The big interview happens and is published every Wednesday at 3:00 as well. Please subscribe to the Resident Podcast on YouTube. Squire of the Show here, I believe in UK, says it wasn't closed to start with. I think, echoing your view on the Straits of Hormuz, not closed to start with, as with the Nord Stream pipelines, intentional through their orchestrated dramas. I think it's known as a false flag, possibly, in the business. And the new electric-driven future consumes the old hydrocarbon world. I think this is a theory here. Those refineries burning, though, shocking ecological crimes against the world and its people. Yes, and we've made the light-hearted joke before, haven't we? Whilst we're on paper straws, they're setting the Middle East alight and filling the skies with black smoke. It doesn't make any sense at all. Where do you think this is all going then, Natasha, or is it too difficult to call still?
I think it would be too depressing to make a prediction. I every now and again, I see a very interesting man on X. I'm trying to remember his name, and he is so despondent and thinks that we're headed for the Third World War, which many people say we're already in a different level.
Yes, I think
but
I know the
it's just
you're
not
talking
good.
about.
It's really not looking good at all. And and the fact is, what annoys me really is that people seem to take stop and listen. I mean, when you're listening to something like Sky, quickly the news anchor says, "Oh, President Trump is about to say something. Let's listen." And then we all have to listen to a load of drivel for a half an hour where he talks about himself, and you think, well, why are we listening to this man? Surely the solution is not to give him so much oxygen. Yeah,
it's really it's bizarre. It beggars belief, doesn't it, to see these
it is
prolonged rantings and monologues, soliloquies.
And the way people take them kind of almost seriously and say, "Oh, there's a lot to unpack from this." Well, of course there is. It's the ramblings of a complete lunatic.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take that. The ramblings of a complete lunatic. Let's hope some sense can be. Well, it won't be coming from him, I suspect. And I wonder how it can come within the. I mean, that's the bigger and very serious point here, isn't it? How did this happen that he could be in that position and inflict this upon the world? And how is it that he can't be stopped in what's meant to be a beacon of democracy that's been exported to so many other countries in the past?
Well, there are many reasons. Democracy doesn't work the way it works. The way it's working, it just does not work. I think it's you're giving the vote to everybody, which sounds wonderful, but a lot of people shouldn't have it because they don't use it properly. And as a result, we've got all these lunatics in high places. So the thing is, democracy doesn't work, but autocracy equally doesn't work. And also you've got the wrong kind of people. I mean, look at the Trump administration is all about making money on the markets. They're all billionaires many times over.
Yes.
I don't really know what that means, but it sounds like they are. billionaires many times over. So they're awash with money, but they've got no, they're not politicians. And the whole idea of politics was, the idea is to guide your nation. And this, they're not bothering at all. They couldn't give a monkeys about the nation. They just want to get rich and have power.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's tragic.
There doesn't seem to be a sense of civic duty, but more a selfish desire being enacted with some of the most powerful weapons and war machinery of the world, as I see it.
I sometimes wonder what the American army are doing following these orders. I mean, you would have thought that there must be people in the hierarchy of the army who say, no, this is ridiculous. We're just not going to do it. Yes. But they do it.
There are some rumblings around that. Well, let's see what happens in this next week. I look forward to talking to you again in a week's time when I'll be back in Portugal. Thank you to those who've tuned in, including...
Well, then you'll have your ears back, because it's very odd talking to you, because you look so different.
Before. Yeah, you haven't seen these before, have you? Thank you, Natasha and Carl. The clarity you bring through your conversation. It's not easy, as Natasha was saying, bringing some clarity to the mess, as you put it, I think is quite the skill at the moment. And a final thought, perhaps, here, we pay so much attention to the 1% when the world was built by the 99%. We'll leave that hanging there. We may return to it next week, and we'll put our finger in the air and see which way the wind's blowing next week. Natasha, thank you very much, and follow Natasha's reporting at the Portugal Resident, of course. Have a great weekend, Natasha, and I'll see you soon.
You too. Take care.
Bye. Bye. Bye.